Hi, I'm Matteo Frana and I'm the founder of ReactBricks. In this video series, I will introduce ReactBricks to you, show you what it is, what problems it solves, and then I will show you a demo. So, first of all, what is ReactBricks? ReactBricks is a tool that allows you to create a CMS with visual editing based on React components. So ReactBricks is two things. It is a React library that you use to create your content blocks, and it is a software as a service where the content is persisted. It works with Next.js, with Gatsby, and with vanilla React. Why we created ReactBricks? Well, at the end of 2019, we were using WordPress as a headless CMS together with Gatsby, but we were not satisfied about the developer's experience, and we were not satisfied about our users' experience too, because we wanted to limit what our users could be able to do to avoid them to use Comic Sans like I did in this slide. But to do so, we used advanced custom fields, and in this way our users were filling in gray forms instead of editing content in a visual way. And really what we wanted was something that was great for developers, for content creators, and for designers too. We started looking at headless CMSs, which are really great for developers, but they are not great for content creators because they are back filling in gray forms, this time inside the interface of the headless CMS. On the other hand, we saw the rise of the no-code tools, and let's think at Wix, for example. Wix is great for content creators, but it's not great for developers because we cannot tweak the code as we'd like, and it's not great for designers too because you cannot reproduce the exact corporate design, and you cannot be sure that your editors will never break the design. So headless are great for developers, Wix is great for content creators, and for designers to be happy too, we need to be able to set constraints on what can be done on content. With these ideas in mind, in January 2020, I wrote this article, The Shape of the CMS to Come, where I envisioned my ideal CMS. And I was thinking that if I had these needs for a new kind of CMS, maybe other agencies skilled in React had the same needs that I had at that time. And well, the requirements were these ones. I needed to have the coupled APIs and the ability to use React for the front end. I wanted visual editing for our editors and to have a block-based system so that the blocks can represent the design system, and constraints to limit what the user is able to do in order to preserve the design system. And well, if we rearrange these blocks, we see that React and blocks go very well together. They're just React components, and the constraints can be set using the props of our components. And visual editing is really two things at once. It is the real what you see is what you get editing over the text and the images, and it is the ability to set props over our component, for example the background color, using a sidebar controls. And so I built this admin interface, and then we created APIs to store the content, and we created a front end. And this front end, given the same JSON from the APIs, render exactly what you saw in the admin interface. How is it possible? Well, it is possible if we have shared content blocks, so in our case, shared React components that represent our content blocks, which are in common between the admin and the front end. If you think of the typical architecture of a headless CMS, Usually you have the admin interface, which is in the orbit of the APIs. It is hosted by the headless CMS. But in this scenario, it is difficult to share these content blocks between the admin interface and the front end. And so, in order to share these content blocks, we moved the admin interface on the front end project. And in this way, sharing is just importing the same module. So now when you open up a ReactBricks project, for example, created with Next.js, you see that you have the admin folder which uses ReactBricks admin components like the editor, the playground, and settings, as we'll see later. And we have the pages, which use the viewer component from ReactBricks to show the front end. And we have this set of shared blocks that we call bricks, which are just React components. And in the JSX, they use ReactBricks visual editing components like text, rich text, image, repeater. And they are a React component with a special static property, which is the schema. And this schema, among other things, defines how props are edited via sidebar controls. And of course, this front-end project talks to our APIs in order to store the content and to process images, which are processed at upload time and optimized for responsive view and for lazy load, and then they are served from a fast global CDN. Okay, enough talking. Demo time. In the next video we'll see a demo of ReactBricks editing interface. Hi, I'm Matteo Frana and I'm the founder of ReactBricks. Welcome to the second part of the ReactBricks demo series. In this part, we'll really look at ReactBricks demo. So what you see here now is a website that I scaffolded using the CLI, and this was a project with Next.js. I chose Next.js and Tailwind as a CSS framework. Well, you see the front-end content, and here there is this edit content button that it's simply a link to the /admin folder where the admin interface is. But since I am already logged in, you see that there is also this button here in the right bottom corner, and I can click it to directly edit this page. So I click it, and this is the ReactBricks editor interface. On the left, you see all the pages of this website, so I can change page, for example, and here in the center I can directly edit the content, so I can change this text, for example. I can set styles, for example bold, or I can also add a link here, and really you can choose for every rich text which features you want to enable. You have order list, unordered list, highlight, italic, bold, etc. And for each feature that you enable, you can provide your own render function, so it's very flexible. And on the right here you have the sidebar where you can edit all the props of this component that are not directly edited in a what you see is what you get way. So for example, I can change the color of this headline, and I can change the background color for all the components. And everything that you see here on the right is not fixed, but it is defined by this content block. So this content block, which is really just a React component, uses ReactBricks visual editing components like text, image, repeater, etc. And it has a schema which defines this sidebar props. So this content block defined that I needed two collapsible groups, one layout with this color select control and two select for the borders, and another collapsible group which has name title, which contain this text gradient here and a title size radio. These props that you set here are passed to your React component, and you can choose for each prop which type of control you want on the right. ReactBricks is so flexible that you can also define a custom component to edit a prop. So for example, if you don't like ReactBricks default color picker, you can provide your own color picker. It's simply a value on change interface. Well, ReactBricks has also the concept of nested blocks. So for example, you see that these two buttons have their own properties, and you see that there is this item tab here because you have three levels: page, block, when I click on the block and I set the props for the block, and when I click on a repeated item, you can see that there is this item tab here that I can use to move the item or change the props for each item. Very well. Now let's see how you can edit images in ReactBricks. If I click on this image, you see that there is a pop-up where I can upload a new image. For example, now let's upload the image of the ReactBricks theme, and I can provide an alternate text and a SEO-friendly name. And now, for example, here I can use another repeater and add two features. Great for devs and great for content creators. Okay, and I can change the props for each one of these. Very well. Another thing that I'd like to show you is that you can test your content at different resolutions, and you can define the resolutions that you want to test, the breaking points in the ReactBricks configuration. And you can also test your components in dark mode. If your bricks are dark mode compatible, you can provide your own toggle function to change to dark mode. And well, you can also see a full screen preview which shows exactly what you will see on the front end. Okay, now let's click on the page tab, and here you have the properties for the whole page, so the visibility, the structure that can be locked or unlocked. If I lock the structure of the page, you see that you don't have anymore all these remove block, add new block, and the buttons to sort or duplicate a block. And it is a way to be sure that your editors will just be able to change the content but not the structure of a page, so they won't be able to change the order of the blocks or add or new blocks or delete blocks. Then you have page attributes like slug, author, publish date. You have the tags, feature image, SEO meta tags, and you can also define new custom fields using ReactBricks configuration. You can add new custom fields that are accessible to your components using ReactBricks hooks. And these custom fields can have all the control type that you can use for blocks. So for example, you can have custom fields that are edited using select, using color pickers, and also using your own custom components. Well, now I'd like to show you what the playground is. The playground is a sort of documentation of your design system, because you can see all of your brick types, and you can click them and play with them, changing the text, the props, and as you change props, you see the resulting JSON of the content here, and you can copy it to set it as the default for when you add a new brick of that type. Here on the settings instead, you can change the setting of the app. Really, we can do it just because we are an admin user of this app. And we can set the app name, we can change the languages. So for example, I can add Italian, I can change the default language, and I can provide a build webhook. Since here I am creating a project with static generation, as content changes, we have to trigger a redeploy on the server, so for example on Vercel or Netlify, and in this way we can set the, in this case, the post webhook and that needed to be called when the content changes. And if we create an editor user which has the permission to trigger a rebuild, he will see this deploy now button in order to update the content on the website. Really, ReactBricks works with any policy, so for example, server-side rendering, static generation, or with Next.js also with incremental static regeneration. Now that I saved, if we go back to the editor, we see that there is this tab with English and the new tab with Italian has appeared. If I click here, it says that there is no an Italian translation for this page, and I can create a translation. Now I can change everything, and this will be the Italian translation of this page. ReactBricks is also already integrated with Next.js internationalization routing, so that you can already have your routing in place for subdirectory routing or subdomain routing, or also second level domain routing. Okay, very well. I think that we saw the main features of the ReactBricks editor. And in the next part we'll see the code, so we'll see how a brick is created in code. Thank you.